Hi everyone. In today's video, we will show you how you can get data from Nautobot using REST API. First, I will give you a glance of where you can find more information related to the Nautobot REST API. So I already opened up a web browser, but what I will do, I will open up a new tab, and in here I will start searching for Nautobot documentation. And the link that we are after is docs.nautobot.com. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that link. And from there, you will be able to see an option called REST API Overview. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And in here, you can see all the different HTTP verbs that we could potentially use to fetch an object or data from Nautobot, or we could potentially create an object, or we could modify an existing object. And finally, we could delete an object. So in today's video, I will be focusing on getting data from Nautobot, and I will show you this by three different methods. But before we actually dig into the details of coding, let's see how we can get the Swagger URL from the Nautobot documentation. So if you keep scrolling down until you hit the interactive documentation section, here you will be able to see the URL or the extended URL that you need in order for you to gain access to the all the REST API endpoints. So what I will do, I will copy this URL and I will start typing the IP address of Nautobot, and then I will concatenate that with the extension that we just copied, and I will hit enter. And shortly we should be able to see or gain access to the API documentation. Here we could see all the possible endpoints that is associated with the Nautobot object, and each endpoint has its own schema. So in this example, I will show you the circuit terminations endpoint. So if I go ahead and click on that endpoint and then scroll all the way down to get to the response section, as you can see here that the code that we should expect is 200, which means that the API call has been triggered successfully. We can change the media type from JSON to text. It depends on your preference. In terms of the example that we will be getting is showing here in this window, and what we see here is the count. The count indicates the number of objects that have been created or have been configured for the circuit terminations table, and the results, which indicates that it will give you kind of like a list of dictionaries. Each dictionary will contain a set of information or a set of data that is associated with a circuit termination object. So for the first one, for instance, it will have an ID, object type, display, and so on and so forth. If we were to go to the schema, and if we were to go to the results and then expand on the circuit termination object, we can see that the ID here, for instance, is a string type, and the value, it's a unique value of UUID, and that UUID is very unique to that particular object. And if you go ahead and scroll down, you can see all the different attributes that will be associated to that particular object, which is circuit termination. All right, guys, I opened up my Nautobot GUI, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and log into my admin account. And in there, I'm going to go to organization, and then I'm going to click on the tags. And as you can see, I have created more than 1,000 tags. And you can see here the maximum that you can display per page is 1,000, and you can see that the number of tags have been created is 1,106. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because I have a particular use case that I'm going to demonstrate in a minute. And so what I will do, I will go ahead and start creating the kind of like the first method, implement the first method to get data from Nautobot. So first things first, I'm going to import requests library, and I'm going to say from rich import print as r underscore print. And then I'm going to create a header variable, and I'm going to assign it to a dictionary. And that dictionary will have a value of authorization, or a key of authorization. And then the value will be token. Yeah, so for those that don't know how to generate a token, is very straightforward. If you go back to your admin profile, and if you go to admin, and in there you will be able to find under users, so you will find tokens object or option. Click on it, and here you will be able to find or create or manage all the tokens that you have. But in order for you to add a new token, you just need to press that plus add button, and in there you have the ability to kind of like assign it to a particular user, and you can even assign a particular key if you want, and then you set the expiry date and the description. But all of these are just optional. So if you hit the save, you will then generate a token by which you can then copy it across to your code. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to say, I'm going to create another variable called URL. And inside that variable, I'm going to say https // 192.168.130.130/API. And then I'm going to create an endpoint variable, and I'm going to assign that extras / tags /. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a response. I'm going to say a response equal requests dot get, and then I'm going to assign the URL, and I'm going to concatenate that with the endpoint, and then I'm going to add the headers. I'm going to assign the headers to the header variable, and then I'm going to verify false. And if I go ahead and then say for each line n response.json, and what I'm interested in the results. I'm gonna say results, and in here I'm gonna say print each line. I'm also gonna create a local variable called I, and I'm gonna assign it to 0 to count the number of iteration triggered from the data that I have received from the API call. And then I'm gonna say I plus equal 1, and in here I'm gonna say print the number of tags that have been displayed are, and then I am going to assign that I variable to it. And if we have configured everything correctly, we should be able to get some data. And here we go, folks. So it says here the number of tags that have been displayed or have been found, let's say, are 50 records. And remember, guys, that I have showed you the number of tags that I've created, which are about 1,106. And this is why I believe that this method would not be quite sufficient. since it's not going to show you if you've got more than 50 records or more than 50 objects for a particular table. Then that is not going to be a very useful method to use. And this is why I'm going to show you the next method. So what I want to show you guys before we actually move into the second method, I want to show you how you could fetch a particular element from the data that you can see on the screen here. So let's say that we would like to get the name of each tag. So what I'll do, I'll get the key value name and I will paste it in here. And once that is been done, I can go ahead and then hit the execution button, and here you will be able to see all the names that have been found. So if I cancel that again, and also if I want to pretty much present it in a JSON format, what I could do, I could say instead of using the print utility, I could use the r_print utility, and that will give me the JSON format. So as you can see on the screen, if I scroll all the way up, so I got the ID, which is the UUID variable, the object type, the display, the URL, and so on and so forth. And you could get a particular element that you are interested in and then do some data manipulation. Okay, guys, so what I'm going to do next, I'm going to show you how you could ultimately use the second method. And the second method that I'm going to show you is going to display all records that have been found for that particular table or for that particular object which is associated with the tags endpoint. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of like comment all of that code, and I'm going to start from line number 4, let's say. And what I have done, I have created a class and I've created a global function file. So the class that I've created is called Nautobot class, and that is quite similar to the previous class that I've created for Netbox. So you've got the base URL, which is assigned with the Nautobot IP address, the token, and you've got the headers, which contains all the data that I'm after, and then some additional variables. And also I have kind of like have some sort of variables that have been assigned to each endpoint that I will be using in the future. So this is pretty much is what I have created for our class. And also I've created a couple of methods in that case. The first method is basically it will learn the count limit and the count offset, as well as the extension, which is the endpoint. It will kind of like feed it into a get session, and that will help us get the data that we need if it exceeds more than 50 records. So we would need that method definitely to get the data we need, and then that method, it will help us understand and learn the number of objects that have been found for a particular endpoint. So these two are very important and they will be used. I just showed you that the class that I'm going to use, and then finally the global functions that I've created as well contains a couple of functions, let's say. So the first function will be used predominantly to help understand the number of pages that we have to go through, and it will kind of like if the number of records have exceed more than 1000 record, then it will kind of like set the offset limit, and it will set the count limit and the offset limit dynamically, and each time it sets it to 1000, it will then trigger the get method from the class. So that is important method that we will be using heavily, and that method will then invoke this method, which what we need, because you will feed the count limit as well as the count offset, which it will be used for the get method from the class, where you will then be able to get the data. So I hope all of that makes sense to you, but this is the code that I'm using. Feel free to kind of like copy it across and give it a go, try to modify and explore different options. But basically I'm relying on these two functions, and then my main Python script, or the demo Python script that I'm going to be using, all what I need to do is basically I will need to say something like, so from classes, I need netbox underscore API underscore class, and I'm going to import Nautobot API. I'm also going to import the global functions, as g underscore functions. I'm going to create an object for my class. So I'm going to call it Nautobot underscore API underscore object. And that is going to be Nautobot. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to say count devices equal g underscore function dot sort out big tables. This is the method that will help me get all the different tags that have been configured for Nautobot. So I'm gonna put in there Nautobot tags. I need to put the endpoint that I am interested in. I'm also gonna call the g underscore function to get all data from netbox. And also I'm gonna specify Nautobot underscore API underscore object. So at this point, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a variable called I, and I'm going to assign it to 0, much like what we have done for the first method. And then in here, I'm going to say for each key, each value in count underscore devices to items, I'm going to say I plus equal 1, and I'm going to say print each value. And then here I'm going to say print the number of tags that have been found are, and then I'm going to concatenate that with the I variable. So if I built everything accordingly, we should be able to get all the data from Nautobot. So I'm going to go ahead and execute that, and as you can see, instantly we've managed to fetch 1106 tags instantly, and it literally took like a few seconds or split seconds. So if I scroll all the way up, you can see all the data that have been created in Nautobot. So at this point, guys, if I want to just display a particular element, let's say that I'm interested in the name, and execute again, and that will give me a list of all the names that have been created in my Nautobot. So that is the second method, and then what I want to show you for the third method, which I believe is the easiest method to use. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna actually comment all that code. And here I'm gonna say import pynetbox, and I'm gonna create a URL, and in there I'm gonna say, okay, instead of me typing, I'm just gonna copy this URL, and I will remove the API towards the end of the variable. And then I'm gonna create a Nautobot object, and I'm gonna assign it to pynetbox API. And in terms of the parameters that I need to pass is the URL, and also I'm gonna specify the token, which is going to be there. And then I'm going to disable the HTTP SSL verification. So I'm gonna say nautobot.http underscore session dot verify equal to false. And then I'm gonna say tags echo nautobot dot extras dot tags dot all. And I'm gonna do the same trick. So I'm gonna create a local variable called I, and I'm gonna assign it to 0, and I'm gonna say for each tag in tags, I'm gonna say I plus equal 1, and then I'm going to use the R underscore print, and I'm gonna say each tag. And in here, I'm gonna say print, and instead of me typing it all over again, I'm just gonna copy that line and I'm gonna paste it there. Right, guys, so I believe my code is correct, so I'm gonna go ahead and execute that. And as you can see, we've managed to pull all different tags that we have configured on Nautobot, and you can see that the number of tags that have been found are 1106. All right, folks, if you found this video helpful, please kindly don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you never miss our future tutorials and tech insights. Remember, the world of tech is ever evolving, so keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep innovating. Your knowledge is your superpower, and you have the potential to make a big impact in the tech world. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to drop a comment below. I read all your comments, and I'm here to assist you. Stay curious, stay inspired, and until next time, peace.